when I actually enjoy being in Canada. You know why? It's actually sunny. Long days and sunshine. Super freaking nice at the moment, which I know for a lot of you Aussies have, you've been getting like shitty weather at the moment, right? Horrible. Not too fun for getting out and doing some exercising. Hello, Ronnie. How are you, legend? How's the new program going, my brother? Oh, I tell you what, mate. It's I'm getting to the end of the power program, dude, and it's a push at the end, isn't it? Especially in a calorie deficit, my brother. All right, guys. So, hello, Craigie. How are you, mate? Are you still on holidays, brother? Seem to be enjoying yourself. All right, guys. So we're going to rip into another episode of Q&A. If you want to ask anything, all you do is just comment your question and I will answer it. And we're going to start at the top with a very common question that we get, but it's being asked again, and that is there any such thing as spot reduction? And when people ask this question, what they're actually asking is it possible for you to spot reduce? So actually, you know what we'll do? Let's have a bit of fun to start this one off. If you're watching this one live, I want you to comment where would you like to spot reduce? If it was actually possible, where would you spot reduce first? Where would you spot reduce first? It's really funny. One of my mates is in the fitness game as well, and he's an absolute legend. And he's got really self-conscious around his cheeks, right? And he actually had fat removal surgery from his cheeks as a dude. I thought that was really fucking interesting. So I think it's, I looked at him, I never even noticed his bloody cheeks. So what about you? If you could reduce fat from one specific part, where would it be? Where would it be? And Levi, hello, mate. Good morning. Inner thighs, yeah. Morning, legend. Yeah, what is that? Okay, so where is it, guys? It's freezing here, Ash. Okay, belly, yeah. For most people, it's the belly, right? So here's the sucky bit about that. No, you cannot. And back, James says, you cannot lose fat from a specific targeted area. Look, let's just pretend you're going to go do some sit-ups to try to lose your belly fat. All you're basically doing, like, if I'm just really honest with you, all you're doing is just bending your fat like that. But that doesn't actually do anything to the fat, right? It doesn't do anything to the fat. What actually happens, I want you to think of it almost like there's two analogies I've got for you. Probably the easiest one is a swimming pool, right? Let's go to the swimming pool. Imagine like your kids are playing around in the swimming pool, and unfortunately you've detected there's some cracks in your swimming pool and the pool needs to be emptied. And the kids are having so much fun on a summer's day, and they say to you, no, mom, dad, I don't want to empty it. Okay, all right, you're going to empty it. All right, look, can you empty it from the shallow end and we'll stay playing in the deep end? And you'd giggle and you'd be like, well, clearly I can't empty it just from the shallow end, right? Yeah, that's exactly like belly fat. The way it works is if you are able to get yourself in a position where you slowly lose total body fat percentage, what will happen is the overall body fat percentage coming down means that at a certain level of body fat, it will leave your belly. But unfortunately, for most people, the belly is one of the last places that it leaves from. And a lot of people will get almost like gaunt in the face before they ever get really low in the belly fat. Now, Charles Tabo is asking in the comments, why do we work various body parts when lifting weights? That is a very, very good question. So why do we do that? Well, because you can target muscle gain. Because this is a local, okay, if I'm doing a sit-up, right, I'm not using the fat to execute the movement, right? It's not the fat that's causing you to do the sit-up. It's the muscle that's lying under the fat. When I do a bicep curl, and by the way, I'm a bit embarrassed about my bicep. It looks okay in that position, but look at this. It snapped. When I do a bicep curl, right, I am using the bicep muscle to bring this bone closer to this bone, right? That is being contracted by the bicep muscle. It's not the fat that's doing anything. Thanks, Hannah. It's not the fat that's doing anything. So if you think that, look, you know what, I'm going to attack this fat by doing fuck tins of sit-ups, nothing is going to happen. we have to get ourselves into a position where we're in a calorie deficit, and then we slowly start to reduce that overall body fat percentage, and then it will eventually leave the belly. Unfortunately, most people quit and before they get to that point. And you know what? It's because it's really hard. It's like the last podcast, if you haven't listened to it yet, the last podcast that I did was talking about how hunger always wins. Hunger always wins. It always wins. And so if you don't have any strategy to keep yourself not hungry while you're in a calorie deficit, this is why you keep falling off. It's because of the fact that hunger always wins. You need a strategy to combat the hunger, especially when so much of our hunger is psychological, right? If you're just joining the feed, guys, you can ask any questions into the comments and I will certainly answer them. And Augustine says, what does spot reduce mean? So spot reduce is the concept of targeting a specific part of your body to lose fat from. The only way that you can actually do that is go and get surgery done. And obviously it can get sucked from that individual fat piece, right? Unfortunately, you can't do it through any form of exercise. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's go to Carmen's question. When tracking meat in MyFitnessPal, how do you know which to pick? There are so many variations of the one type of meat. Carmen, you are bang the fuck on. This is such a great question. In the workshop that we did in our client group the other day, what I conceded to you guys was that if I'm really, really freaking honest, guess what? I probably pick the lowest calorie one, right? So when I put in sirloin steak, 250 grams, I'll get one that is 500 calories and I'll get one that's 900 calories. And this is why calorie tracking is not a perfect science at all. At best, all we're trying to get is some sort of our head around this whole thing, right? We're trying to get some gauges of where it's at. It will never be perfect. So I think it's probably maybe good practice, Carmen. Once you've done this a number of times, you'll get a bit of an understanding for it. So I would work off, for example, 250 grams of chicken. If it's cooked the right way, I know that that's going to be like 450 calories, right? So if I have this big piece of meat, right, that's 250 grams, and it's got this big fuck off bit of fat on it that you haven't cut off, or the fat's going all through the meat, and it says, oh, it's 550 calories. Do you think that's likely? Do you think it's likely that all of that fat in the meat is only going to be 100 calories more than the chicken? 550 calories versus 450 calories? Not a hope in hell. Not a hope in hell. So it's still a guessing game is the long story short. I would work off probably for a piece of meat for most of them. If it's fairly lean, you're probably going to be looking at about 600 calories for 200 to 250 grams, right? Which is, red meat is extremely healthy, extremely anabolic. It helps you build muscle. It's probably the most complete food in the world in terms of its vitamins and minerals. Having said that, it's also fairly calorie dense because it does have a fair amount of fat in it if you're not choosing leaner versions. Okay, that doesn't make it bad. It just means it's a little bit higher calories. Will your bicep ever heal? No, it won't. The tendon is snapped. So if you think about it like a muscle that's been stretched, you have an opportunity once it's first done to reattach it, but then it kind of just turns into some scar tissue, which is why it's like got this weird hole there now, unfortunately. I just made a decision that's not worth having the surgery. Guys, any more questions that you want to ask, pop them in the comments and I will answer them. How accurate are the body composition scales that you can buy from malls or online stores? That's a bloody good question. And by the way, if you've ever had your body fat tested, I mean, how reliable are these things? The short answer is they're not crazy reliable. Now, I'll give you an example. At the moment, I'm doing a calorie cut at the moment. I'm going to approximate that I'm probably at, I want to say 15% body fat is what I'm going to say. Yeah, I think 15% body fat. on the scales, on my home scales, I'm reporting 22% body fat. I might be biased, but I just don't think I'm 22% body fat. So the readings can change when you know, the ones that you hold on to in gyms, or you stand on them at home and they kind of give you the weight, but they also get the measurements. These readings are based on the idea of conduction. Okay, so sending some electricity up you and then seeing what happens. So how much food you've got in you, the electrolyte status, the hydration level that you're currently at, the current weight, whether you're sweaty, whether you've got direct contact with the scales, all of these variables are going to mean that it's not really accurate. About the most accurate thing that you can do is you would go to get a DEXA scan, and it's kind of like an X-ray machine. Takes about 5 to 8 minutes to do, and you sit in the X-ray machine, and it gives you a pretty accurate reflection of what you are. And it also tells you where the fat is disposed, okay? I think this is a really good idea for someone that's maybe starting our elite program, and when they realize that, guess what? I'm not going to see as much physical progress in terms of fat loss. I do want to keep myself motivated by seeing any changes to my body composition, because what can happen is you could stay at 90 kilos or 70 kilos or 110 kilos. You could stay there for a year, but actually your body composition has changed, right? Your body composition has changed. Hannah's asking, how are you pretty good at estimating body fat percentage just by looking at physique? So the reason is how I've got a bit of an idea is from pictures as references, but then also I had a DEXA scan done maybe 5 years ago, and it come up at 16% body fat. And I remember what I look like at 16% body fat, but of course there's biases in there as well, right? I also know for you to get like super duper shredded, and like this conversation is not that important really. Like for you to get super duper shredded and really see abs, you might start seeing visible abs at like 15% body fat, right? But once it starts to get down to sort of 10%, that's when you'll see them kind of all year round without flexing. Does that make sense? For the majority of the guys and girls listening to this is just not a very beneficial conversation, because to be honest, like, you don't want a six pack. What you want is to feel healthy and feel strong, right? So is there any validity in the bathroom scales that measure body fat? You know what? Even though they're unreliable, I think the fact that they are possibly constantly unreliable, that probably gives you some sort of an indication, okay? All right. What else have we got here? Sandy says, I refer to the meal plan calories if the meat doesn't have a label. Yeah, Sandy, I appreciate that. The meal plan calories are my best judgment. Having said that, again, it's still not a perfect science. This is also the reason why, you know, at the start, I think that customization of calorie requirements is also just not necessary. I just know straight up. I just know that a woman that's sitting at around 1,600 calories is going to be in a moderate calorie deficit, unless she's like super muscly and big. I know that every man sitting around 2,000 calories is going to be in a calorie deficit. It's just a matter of how far, right? Dean says, I did back-to-back with a DEXA and it is out. I don't know what you mean by that, but what I will say, Dean, is even with DEXAs, they are still not perfectly reliable. And how do I know this? Is because we used to, in our advanced program, we used to actually do some DEXA as like a mandatory thing at the start of it. And some people were coming back. Like I could just clearly see there is no fucking way you are 5% less body fat than this other person. Yet still, it was looking like 5% body fat according to the DEXA. So there's also different DEXA machines and there's different technicians and they've got to be calibrated. Again, this is why I don't really think that the conversation is that necessary, to be honest. I do think taking your photos, your measurements, I think probably the most important measurement actually a person can take is their waist circumference. Because with your waist circumference, This is a measure of your abdominal fat, right? If that's coming down, even if by a centimeter every couple of weeks, you are heading in the right direction. Okay, Joanne, I'm going to answer your questions. The group posts some amazing meals. Would you consider making a guide with these meal ideas? Yeah. So, Joe, a couple of points on that. The first one is I started making recipe cards. They are inside. If you go into the guides and you slide down, so go into the guides in the Facebook group and then slide down to recipe cards and you will see some in there. The second thing is as part of our elite extension program, Joe, we've got like 7 recipe books that are and like 250 recipe cards, like more than you could ever need. Okay, so all in good timing, my girl. Guys, if you want to ask any questions, you can pop them into the comments and I will answer anything and everything you need. Do you lose fat while you're sleeping on certain supplements? Do you lose fat while you're sleeping on certain supplements? There are not many supplements at all that cause fat loss. Just like, let's be really, really clear about them. You know, these ideas of fat burners and all this sort of stuff, what burns fat is being in a calorie deficit. And I think like people have this idea that the fat's getting torched and shit and there's firework. It's like, it doesn't work like that, right? What happens is over time, when your body is forced to be in a calorie deficit, in other words, your body's running out of petrol, it goes and takes some fat from your fat cells and uses it as a fuel source. It pulls it out of your fat cells. The fat cells don't disappear. The fat cells stay there, right? But it pulls the juice out of the fat cells and then puts them to work so that you can use that fat as calories, right? There is no magic pill that just burns fat by itself, okay? There's really none. And people will say, oh, what about green tea extract? Oh, look, you might get like a 0.05% benefit of this, but realistically, it's funny. If you are the sort of person that is taking fat burner supplements and doing all this like crazy shit, but your sleep is not right and your eating's completely off, you just won't lose weight. It's as simple as that. Okay? So stop trying to hack the thing. Does that answer the question? Hopefully that answers the question. Guys, I'm noticing potentially my internet might be a bit shaky, especially on Instagram. I'm not really sure why, but just letting you know. How important is it to keep your heart rate up or sweat while working out? The short answer is it's not important. It's not important. But continuing to move and doing steps during your workouts, I think I've changed my opinion on this a little bit. I would have said probably up until about a year ago, your best usage of your time while being in a gym is just to sit down and recover. But the reality is you probably don't need to sit down and recover. You could probably just do like a lap of the gym and that'd be completely fine. And you would utilize the otherwise 20 minutes of sitting down during your workouts. You could utilize that to track up some steps, right? Which isn't a bad idea. But the idea of like bouncing around and kind of trying to keep your heart rate up, that is not necessary. That's not really why you're in the gym. Not really why you're in the gym. All right, team. Hopefully we're good. Hello, Chris. Good morning, mate. Questions, guys. We've got 3 or 4 to go. Are there any benefits or claimed benefits for apple cider vinegar? Are they legit? Negative, Ghost Rider. One of the things about apple cider vinegar is that it's low calorie. And I've got to admit, I fucking love apple cider vinegar. It's so good. In terms of my chicken schnitzel or my fish, I literally coat it. Like I pour the bottle out of apple cider vinegar. But I do that because it tastes nice and it's very low in calories. I don't do that because it's got some independent fat burning zone that it helps to do. Okay? You know what? Sauces and dressings and marinades are one of the things that bring people unstuck. they get a packed salad and they use all of the fucking Caesar dressing in the packed salad, and they think, well, what's going on here? Like, why am I not losing weight? Dude, you're taking lettuce, which is basically water and has no calories, and you're putting cream on the top of it, and it's the cream that's the issue, right? But in terms of apple cider vinegar, no. It's basically useless. What's the difference between front squats and back squats? Great question. Well, the primary difference is that back squats will typically, they're a not as advanced version. Front squats are extremely difficult. Who can do front squats? If you can do front squats, you're fucking strong. They are really hard to do, particularly as we get a little bit older, and they require a lot of wrist mobility because the position that you've got to get yourself into with your wrists and your elbows and your shoulders is pretty difficult. So for most people, I don't know. I don't really think front squats are something that you really need to worry about. I don't really think. Unless you're a more advanced lifter and you want to get a little bit more technical, then I just don't think that they are too much that you need to worry about. Okay? Good morning. Can you explain why the medication like Duromine does not work? Give me 2 seconds. I want to understand. 2 seconds. I want to understand the mechanism by which Duromine actually works. Okay. So basically, here's the way Duromine works. Phentermine is, you would have heard of this before, a stimulant that suppresses your appetite. Okay? So that was asked by Kai, I think it was. Yeah, Kai Kilmary. It's an appetite suppressant. So basically, it works by acting on your central nervous system to make you feel less hungry. Right? The problem is that it's not a permanent fix. So once that effect has worn off, then the hunger comes back again. And what it doesn't address is a lot of the time the food noise. So it might suppress the appetite, but that doesn't mean the food noise goes away. For a lot of overweight people, and I've really come to understand this more over the last year, is that we're just constantly thinking about fucking food. It's almost like, all right, I've just finished my meal, but I'm almost trying to prepare for my next meal. Like, what's for lunch? Where can I get it? It's just constant food noise. And this is where I do think that Ozempic does have a proven and positive role. If you are doing the Ozempic as partnered with a proper lifestyle intervention program. Ozempic works. It will lead to weight loss because when you take away the food noise, you don't eat. Like, think about it. Remember I said at the start of this podcast, hunger will always win. Well, if you use something external like Ozempic to just delete the hunger, actually hunger doesn't win. You've turned a David and Goliath battle into Goliath versus Goliath. You know what's actually happening now in the food and supplement industry, particularly the food manufacturing industry, is they are trying to find out now chemicals to help circumvent Ozempic. That's how powerful Ozempic is. So would I blanketly say you guys should get on Ozempic 100%? No, definitely not. And the reason for this is that if you are not lifting weights, number one, if you are not eating enough protein, if you cut your calories down too quickly, what's going to happen is you're going to do more damage than good, I think. So you need to really learn how to make this a lifestyle. This has to become a lifestyle for you. And for even people that are getting on Ozempic, if you just do the Ozempic and nothing else, yes, you will lose weight, but as soon as you come off it, you will likely just pack all the weight back on again. Okay, questions. Sorry, probably, and I've been asked before, is it okay that I'm not the calories, but hitting protein? I think what you're saying is I'm not tracking calories, Chris, and hitting protein is okay. Yes, that is level of that's the first level of tracking. I think it's a really good idea. And why is it a really good idea? It's a good idea because if you are not tracking calories, but you are tracking protein, what will end up happening as a consequence of that is that you will be really, really full. You'll be really, really full if you're hit. The caveat, Chris, is this. Are you hitting your protein through mostly single ingredient whole foods? If you are hitting it mostly through single ingredient whole foods, then yes, I think that is a doable strategy. It's not a replacement, but it's a doable strategy, right? If, however, you are hitting your protein target through protein shakes, protein bars, which is not bad, you're just not going to have the same satiating effect as the whole food, right? So with the non-satiating effect, what's going to end up happening is you are going to end up just overeating your calories anyway, right? So the big benefit to eating more protein is the satiating effect. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there because I don't know if it's showing up on Facebook, but I can just see my my feed getting a little bit sketchy, and I have no idea why. So, guys, hopefully this has been helpful. If you've got any questions, your coaches are always here for you. You know that. Either pop a question into the group, send it through to the coaches chat. Whatever you need, guys, we're here for you and looking forward to seeing you all on the coaching calls this week. Let's go.